You feel it before you name it. A flutter behind the ribs, a pulse in the wrist when your phone lights up. Not with urgency, but with recognition. As if your nervous system has already memorized the cadence of their reply before the message arrives. This isn't intuition. It's neurochemical conditioning. You're not falling in love. You're being scheduled. Every good morning at 6:03 a.m., every voice note sent at 2:17 a.m., every "I just thought of you" timed precisely between your last exhale and your next scroll. These are not accidents. They are data points in a forensic timeline of emotional coercion. 68% average reduction in prefrontal cortex activity during early-stage digital love bombing cycles. That number isn't abstract.
It's the measurable dimming of your executive function. The part of your brain that says, wait, question, pause.
When someone floods your attention with hyper-availability, texting across 18 hours, sending 217 messages in one day, reading your messages instantly then replying within 9 seconds, they aren't proving devotion. They're conducting a live experiment on your limbic system.
They're testing how fast they can bypass your logic and land directly in your attachment circuitry. A clinical psychology resident in Portland received 317 messages in 36 hours, from "I'm obsessed with your laugh" to "I already know what our wedding vows will sound like." She didn't feel cherished. She felt overwritten. Her calendar disappeared. Her boundaries dissolved into the glow of her screen. This is not romance. It is temporal density, a psychological weapon disguised as affection. And the most dangerous part? You don't resist it. You lean in.
Because your brain interprets the flood as safety, as proof, as destiny. The attachment system, once activated, is immensely powerful and suppresses judgment. Dr. Susan Johnson, emotionally focused therapy pioneer. That suppression is the first fracture.
The moment your inner voice quiets, not from peace, but from overstimulation. Not from trust, but from exhaustion. You stop asking why they're so available. You start wondering why you're not responding fast enough.
That shift from observer to participant in your own erasure is where the trap closes. Love bombing. Hyperavailability times digital mirroring times accelerated intimacy equals boundary collapse. It begins with mirroring. They quote your favorite line from a film you mentioned once. They adopt your slang. They just happen to love the same obscure poet, the same hiking trail, the same brand of oat milk. But this isn't resonance, it's reconnaissance. Every shared preference is a calculated echo, designed to create the illusion of preordained alignment. And then comes the acceleration. I've never felt this way before. You're my person. I'm done dating. I'm choosing you. These declarations aren't milestones. They're pressure valves designed to short-circuit your skepticism before it ignites.
Emotional intimacy rushed is not intimacy. It's intrusion masked as revelation. You don't build closeness in days. You discover it in silence, in contradiction, in the slow unspooling of contradictions. Real connection breathes. This doesn't. It consumes.
Momentum feels like truth. When everything moves fast, texts, confessions, future planning, declarations, it generates its own gravitational pull. You begin to believe that slowness is disconnection, that hesitation is rejection, that pausing means losing them.
But here's what no one tells you.
Artificial momentum is the manipulator's primary tool for bypassing your discernment. They don't want you to think. They want you to feel, and then act on that feeling before your prefrontal cortex catches up. So they engineer urgency. Let's meet tomorrow. I can't wait another second. I need to tell you something important. Can we hop on a call now? I've never told anyone this, but I'm telling you. Each statement is a psychological lever, prying open your vulnerability before your defenses have time to recalibrate. Momentum is not speed, it's the absence of friction. In healthy relating, friction is where boundaries form. Friction is the pause before yes. It's the breath before I love you. It's the space between I'm interested and I'm committed. Without it, intimacy becomes a performance, not a process. And you become the audience to a script you didn't write, starring a character who only exists in the high-definition glow of their curated self. 73% of clinically observed love bombing victims report initiating contact more frequently after 72 hours of hyper-availability. Why? Because your dopamine baseline has been recalibrated. Your brain now expects reward on their schedule, not yours. You check your phone not because you want to connect, but because your nervous system is scanning for relief from the low-grade anxiety of waiting. That's not attraction. That's dependency in embryo. Romantic love functions as a natural addiction fueled by the ventral tegmental area and nucleus accumbens. Neuroscience of Love, Journal of Cognitive Neuroscience, 2024. So slowing down isn't resistance, it's reclamation. It's the deliberate reassertion of your biological rhythm against their engineered tempo. It's saying, without words, my time is not yours to orchestrate. My attention is not yours to command. My emotional pace is mine alone to govern. And that brings us to the 5 silent moves. Not reactions, not defenses, but sovereign acts. Moves that do not argue, accuse, or withdraw, but test. Moves that force the illusion to crack under the weight of its own impossibility. The first move is not about them. It is about you. It is called the anchor technique. You choose one non-negotiable rhythm in your life, something immovable, deeply personal, and utterly unromantic. It could be your 6:15 a.m. meditation, your Tuesday evening pottery class, your Sunday 3 p.m. Walk no headphones, no phone, just pavement and sky. This is your anchor. Not a boundary with them, but a boundary within you, a fixed point in your internal geography. Anchors are not walls, they are compass points. Reminders of where you stand when the world tilts.
When they text at midnight asking, "Can we talk about us?" you do not reply. You do not explain. You simply return to your anchor, your breath, your walk, your quiet. You let the silence hold its shape. You do not fill it with apology or justification. You let it be. Why does this work? Because hyperavailability only has power when it's met with hyperresponsiveness. The moment you introduce a fixed, unyielding rhythm, unrelated to them, you disrupt the variable ratio reinforcement loop. Their dopamine-triggering unpredictability loses its leverage. Your consistency becomes the new variable they must adapt to or reveal their impatience. Boundary, an anchor is not refusal. It's the quiet declaration. I exist outside your timeline. This is not punishment. It is calibration.
You are not withholding love. You are protecting the architecture of your selfhood. And in that protection, something profound happens. Their behavior shifts. Either they respect your rhythm, or they escalate. Either they deepen their authenticity, or they expose their fragility.
Either way, the mask begins to slip. The second move is vulnerability withholding. Not coldness, not secrecy, not deception, but strategic withholding. Refusing to offer the raw, unfiltered emotional material they're mining for control. You do not share your deepest fears, your childhood wounds, your insecurities, until you decide the timing serves your integrity, not their narrative. Digital mirroring only works when there's something to mirror. Withhold the reflection, and the illusion collapses.
They ask, "What's your biggest regret?" You smile. You say, "That's a beautiful question. I'll tell you when I trust the silence between us more than the words." Or, "I'm still learning how to hold that story with kindness. When I do, I'll share it with care, not convenience. This is not evasion."
It is embodied discernment. Every time you withhold vulnerability, not out of fear, but out of sovereignty, you force them to confront the emptiness beneath their performance. Their mirroring requires content to reflect. No content, no mirror. Just a hollow stage. Vulnerability is not currency.
It is sacred ground only offered when the soil is ready. And here's the quiet truth. Real intimacy doesn't rush to confession. It waits for resonance. It builds in the pauses, in the glances held a beat too long, in the comfort of silence that doesn't need to be filled.
When you stop performing your pain to earn their attention, you stop feeding the machine that turns your heart into their script. Third, the future fake neutralization. They speak of vacations you haven't booked, homes you haven't seen, children you haven't imagined.
"We'll live in Lisbon. Our dog will love your sister."
I already picked out the nursery wallpaper. These aren't dreams. They're psychological landmines, planted to create false stakes, false investment, false permanence. Love bomb. Future faking is not planning its preemptive possession. Your move? Neutralize it, not with dismissal, but with present tense precision. When they say, "I see us married in 3 years," you respond, "That sounds lovely. Right now, I'm focused on getting to know you, not the version of you in my imagination." Or, "I love how vividly you imagine things. For me, the future unfolds in moments, not blueprints." This is not cynicism. It is ontological clarity.
You are refusing to co-sign a fiction they've written without your consent. You are anchoring the relationship in what is, not what could be. And in doing so, you expose their fantasy for what it is, a projection, not a partnership. A future built on assumptions is a house built on fog.
Fourth, the aesthetic disruption. They've curated a flawless digital persona. Every photo lit like a Renaissance portrait, every bio line poetic, every story a carefully composed vignette.
They expect you to match it, to perform your best self, your most radiant version, your most effortlessly magnetic energy. So you disrupt it. You post a photo of your messy desk. You send a voice note with background noise. Your neighbor's dog barking, your kettle whistling. You wear the sweater with the coffee stain. You speak plainly without flourish. You show up unpolished, not to provoke, but to deconstruct. Perfection is the manipulator's first language. Imperfection is your native tongue. This isn't self-sabotage. It's authenticity as armor. When you refuse to participate in the aesthetic mirroring, when you decline to be the flawless counterpart to their flawless image, you shatter the illusion of preordained symmetry. You force them to engage with you, not their fantasy of you. And if they recoil?
That's not disappointment. That's revelation.
Fifth and final, the iron boundary. Not a request, not a negotiation.
Not a soft "I'd prefer," but a clean, unadorned line. This is not up for discussion. Examples. I do not share passwords or location access with partners. I do not discuss past relationships in detail during early dating. I do not engage in late-night emotional escalation. You state it once.
You do not justify. You do not apologize. You do not soften it with, "I hope that's okay." You simply are it. An iron boundary is not rigid, it is rooted. It bends only when your values bend, and they do not. This boundary is not about control, it's about coherence. It declares, I am not porous.
I am not negotiable. My integrity is not subject to your approval. And when they test it, when they sigh, guilt trip, or disappear, you do not chase. You do not explain. You simply return to your anchor, your rhythm, your silence.
Because the ultimate truth is this: love bombers do not seek connection. They seek compliance. And compliance cannot survive an unshakable center.
When you execute these 5 moves not as weapons, but as acts of radical self-honoring, something extraordinary happens. The manipulator either transforms or vanishes. If they transform, if they slow down, respect your rhythm, honor your silence, engage with your reality, they were never a bomber.
They were just someone who mistook intensity for intimacy. And you have given them the gift of learning the difference. But if they vanish, if they rage, ghost, punish, or escalate, their departure is not loss. It is liberation. Because what leaves is not love. It is pressure, not devotion.
It is demand, not a person. It is a pattern wearing a face. You were never meant to shrink yourself to fit their illusion. You were meant to stand so fully in your truth that their fiction could no longer hold its shape. You will feel grief, not for them, but for the version of yourself you almost surrendered. That grief is sacred. It is the tide receding, revealing the bedrock you forgot was there. Grief is not the end of the story. It is the first honest sentence. So breathe. Return to your anchor. Speak your truth without apology. Hold your boundaries like they are the last pure water on earth. Because you are not broken, you are awake. And awakening is never gentle, but it is always yours. If this resonated, if you felt seen in the silence between the lines, subscribe, not for answers, but for the courage to keep asking the right questions.